great to see you all. Lovely to be able to see at least many of your faces and to be together again. If folks are joining us, as we mentioned, if you'd like to share, if you're joining us, where you're joining us from, and great to see folks joining us from California and many other parts of the Memphis, Tennessee. Elizabeth there, and welcome, and Betty and Joe in Charlottesville, and Juliana in Irvine, California, and Sean in Toronto, Canada. That's great. And Patricia in St. Petersburg, Florida. Christine in Ithaca, New York. So someone asked last week, would we be continuing with the online sessions when we do go back, if and when we do go back to being in person? And we've talked about it, and it's my very strong commitment to continue with the online. So I imagine we would be back in Tenleytown physically together, hopefully at Iona, hopefully that will be available to us. But we'll have a way of kind of patching people in and having a laptop there, and so people can still join us from everywhere, and the class will continue, and take account of the fact that some number of us are joining from online, and others, the majority probably in person. So that's one of I suppose the silver linings of the pandemic, of being able to be together online in this way. And there's something about it, I feel, obviously we all miss that personal connection, and there's no way that seeing people on a screen or hearing each other kind of replaces that. But there is something quite wonderful, I think, about certainly if I'm teaching a class, being able to notice how see faces, and be able to see at least 20 or 25 faces at a time, and notice if people are kind of dropping off to sleep, maybe I need to get a bit more interesting or whatever, or just having that connection is really lovely, and being able to all of us see each other, or at least some proportion of each other, is wonderful. So here we are in here I'm in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I look out the window and see the snow, and so it's nice for the second Sunday in a row to have the snow. And we continue to be in the middle of a very intense time. We got the Senate events coming up on beginning, I think, Tuesday, and all of that. Some of you will be relieved to know I won't say anything. I won't talk about that today. We'll find time to have those conversations, and maybe, as we've been doing in this last year, we have a space, we used to call it mindful politics, which I think is a nice, it often feels like an oxymoron, if mindfulness and politics, it can seem like oil and water or something, but it is an area that we can really bring kindness, we can bring compassion, and I think we need to. And so we did over through 2020, through the elections, we had this series of monthly mindful engagement kind of opportunities to work with all that's coming up for us around the elections and the pandemic and everything else. Certainly for today, I want to focus on very much on the practice, and maybe just share something that came up for me this week. I think it just came up when I was meditating, and I just had a feeling that it was time to start offering the teachings, the Buddha's teachings, in a systematic way. What I do in the class is, it's often, often the different weeks are connected to each other, but I don't tend to kind of go through like a series of 6 talks or 4 talks or 8 talks. And, I reflect on the fact that all of us come with different experiences, with different histories. There'll be people on this session today, in this class today, who might be attending their first or second or third, or very early in the meditation practice. And there'll be people here who've been practicing meditation for more than 20 years, maybe 30 years, maybe 40 years. And there's a way in which what I want to share has to speak to the whole kind of spectrum, so it's not kind of arcane or obtuse or opaque for those who are new, but it isn't just a repeat every week of basic the basic principles of mindfulness, etc. And so it's important to find a balance in the class in terms of speaking in a way that's kind of as accessible as possible for everyone, but also I'm conscious that that people often speak of a wish to get a better handle on the Buddha's teachings. Probably everyone's familiar with there's the 4 Noble Truths, and there's the Noble Eightfold Path, there's the 4 foundations of mindfulness, there's the 7 factors of awakening. Maybe not everyone is familiar with all of these, but there's the 3 refuges, and there's the 10 paramis, and it's interesting, a lot of people their eyes glaze over with the lists of the Buddhist lists, and it's kind of historically interesting how the teachings have come down basically by being memorized, and before they were written down for about 500 years, they were just passed on through, I think, monastics chanting the teachings as they'd been received, and they passed on. And so this, the more they could be kind of categorized, the more they could be remembered and passed on. So that's kind of why you have the 6 of this and the 5 of this and the 7 of this, the 5 hindrances and the 5 spiritual faculties, etc., etc. But in order to really make these teachings as meaningful as possible, I think we really need to have a grasp, at least on the core teachings of the Buddha. The core teachings, I would include the 4 Noble Truths about suffering and the end of suffering, the Eightfold Path, the kind of the path of training in mindfulness, in ethics, and in the cultivation of wisdom that helps to lead to the end of suffering. The basic teachings of mindfulness, particularly the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the teachings of the heart practices of loving kindness and compassion and equanimity and joy. And obviously, the more, people want to dive into the teachings, there's almost no end to them. You could study them and explore them for a lifetime and still have more to do. But I think an acquaintance with the core teachings, I think is very powerful and supportive to us in our lives. And about a decade ago, I taught these courses, each semester, each season, or whatever I do, teaching on the 4 Noble Truths, or on the divine abodes, the Brahma Viharas, or on the foundations of mindfulness. And over a few years, we'd kind of cycle through, maybe 10 or so courses. And I feel it's like about time to do that again now. And for me, the question, there's the teachings that have been around for 2,500 years, have been shared and have been passed on. But what's really most important to me and most relevant is the question of how they can be helpful for us today. So the theme that I have for kind of a series of classes coming up is the core teachings of the Buddha and their relevance today, or their relevance for our time. Because, these teachings aren't passed on as something to believe in. I believe in the teaching, I believe in the Four Noble Truths. They're teachings to be explored and practiced. I think of the teachings on suffering and the end of suffering as really more propositions than beliefs, or hypotheses to be tested. I could ask you, do you experience suffering in your life? And the Buddha would define suffering in a particular way. Do you experience suffering in your life? Probably all of us would say, if we kind of scanned our experience, we'd say, well, yeah, I'm suffering. I'm finding it really hard to talk with my cousin Bob, who voted for X in the last election, and we get into angry back and forth about it on Facebook or whatever, and I find I suffer from that. Or I'm having difficulty with my kids and I'm getting angry with them all the time. So many different ways we suffer. And then where does this suffering come from? The Buddha says the suffering comes from clinging, from craving, from trying to hold on to something, want something we want to hold on to, or push away something we don't like. Is that in fact true in your experience? Is there something, when you're suffering, is there something you're holding on to? Is there something you're craving or clinging to? That's the second noble truth. And the third noble truth is that you can find an end to suffering by letting go of clinging, letting go of craving. And so you might experience that in your life, of being willing to be with, a difficult experience, but rather than acting it out or repressing it or spacing out, you actually stay with it and you work with it and allow it to come and go. And do you experience, an end to suffering, at least not necessarily a complete end to suffering, but at least a limited, a letting go, a little bit of a letting go from suffering. And yes, maybe you do. You recognize that. That's the third noble truth, the liberation, the freeing from suffering. And the fourth noble truth is the path that leads to the end of suffering, that path of training that I mentioned in meditation and in wisdom and in virtue or ethics, living wisely, living skillfully. So I definitely didn't want to begin with a talk today, but I just wanted to say that that looking at exploring these core teachings from a standpoint of how can they support us in our lives, or maybe not even how. First of all, can they? Is it possible to really incorporate these teachings and practices into our lives in ways that do lead to greater freedom, greater ease, greater peace in our lives? So I wanted to share that because it's something that I've been thinking about as something that would be offered outside of this class, probably in 6-week sessions, one evening a week for 6 weeks, beginning probably in a couple of months. So wanted to let you know about that, and if that's something you might be interested in, and I'll kind of incorporate the teachings obviously into the Sunday class, but we won't be able to do it at the same depth in that way, because it goes without saying, and I often talk about it. These are difficult times to live in. We've just been through we're not all the way out of it. We've been through a very difficult period with the elections, and now we have a new administration come in. We're still in the middle of the pandemic, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and fingers crossed we may be out of it within 6 months or so, all being well, God willing, and the creek don't rise, as they say. But we're still really divided, divided as a country, divided often within families, and lots of challenges to work with. And these teachings I've certainly found in my own life, in my own practice, have been hugely supportive. In some ways, I can't imagine having got through the last year or so without these teachings, without these practices. And I'm sure many others here feel that too. So I've got something I'd like to talk about after we've had a meditation, and just depending on the amount of time we have, I'll do it either as a kind of an overview or, get into it as much as we can. But a number of you have expressed that you appreciate beginning with a meditation. We'll still call this beginning with a meditation, even though I did talk for a bit there, as a way of kind of being able to drop in, and then perhaps after that, anything that gets shared kind of can be received perhaps in a more, in a different kind of way. So we'll begin with a sitting period of meditation. Maybe take about 20 minutes. So I invite you to find a comfortable, relaxed posture. Close your eyes if you'd like to. Let your attention come inward. Take some moments to make any adjustments in your posture so that you can be as relaxed and at ease as you can. And letting your attention drop out of the thinking mode as much as possible and down into the body. You might just move your attention down through the face, down to the torso and the arms and the lower body. Feel your body on the chair or the seat. Feel the weight pressing down. Feel the contact with the surface beneath you. Your feet with the floor. Your hands in your lap or on your knees, whatever they're in contact with. And just bring your awareness to your breathing. Begin by noticing, excuse me, noticing how your breathing is right now. And you could invite the breath to deepen as a way of relaxing and settling. Nice full deep in-breath. And releasing on the out-breath, letting go. As you breathe in, nice full deep in-breath as though you're inflating a balloon. And relaxing, letting go on the out-breath. Imagine you're breathing out, releasing, exhaling any stresses, any tension, busyness. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. letting the breath help you settle and arrive. And know that you can always come back if you feel you're caught up in stress or tension. Just to invite a few deeper breaths, a couple of deeper, longer, deeper breaths in the meditation or in daily life. Inviting a smile to the face if that might help you relax a little bit more too. Just activating the muscles around the eyes and around the face, the mouth. Maybe thinking of a loved one, somebody who easily makes you feel happy or joyful. Just take in whatever feelings come up, maybe any feelings of warmth, ease. Maybe invite the smile down into the body, into the heart area. See if you can let the smile be the expression that you, or the attitude which you bring to your experience. So meeting your experience now with the attitude, with the expression of a smile. Welcoming the guests in Rumi's words. Whatever's present right now, can you welcome this? Welcome this breath. Welcome this feeling. You might notice that a difficult feeling, when welcomed, might actually change. So if you have a feeling of restlessness or tiredness, but rather than kind of tensing up to resist it, you invite a welcoming attitude towards it. You make space for it. What happens when you do that? Does it change the experience in any way? We may find that our experience changes by how we meet it, how we meet this moment, how we meet this feeling or emotion. So inviting a quality of kindness, kindness towards yourself, kindness towards your experience. So opening to what's present right now in the body. You might do a brief scan of your body, see what's noticeable, anything calling for attention. Meeting what's here with a quality, an attitude of kindness. This attitude of friendliness, of warmth towards yourself and your experience. You could think of it as an attitude of loving kindness, friendliness to your experience. may manifest as compassion if there's any suffering present, if there's some pain or difficulty or strong emotion. Just meeting your experience with compassion towards yourself, with kindness, with care. Could be just a simple gesture of the hand on your heart, maybe the other hand on your belly. And the feelings that are expressed in that: care, kindness. Letting the breath be a support if that's helpful to you. Could be just being aware of the breathing, of your breathing as a home base or an anchor for your attention. Or the deeper breathing if you're dealing with something that's difficult. Just to relax and settle the body again. So inviting this attitude of kindness. In her poem, Kindness, Naomi Shihab Nye, the Palestinian-American poet, talks about kindness and as the deepest thing inside and sorrow as the other deepest thing. She says, before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. So inviting this quality of kindness to your experience. And accepting what is here right now. Inviting to a quality of acceptance. A whole lot of our time we are dealing with things that we don't like. I don't like this feeling, or I don't like this person or being here. And the invitation in this practice is to accept that what is here is here. As the meditation teacher in the Thai forest tradition, Ajahn Sumedho, uses the kind of a mantra of, it's like this moment, it's like this. Sadness, it's like this. Tightness, it's like this. Tiredness is like this. Peace, it's like this. So inviting this quality of acceptance to what's here. In the words of Dorothy Hunt, peace is this moment without judgment. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. So meeting this moment without judgment, without resistance, without clinging. This moment just as it is. Whenever you notice that you're caught up in thought, the mind has gone off into a story or plans or daydreams, just gently and kindly invite the attention back, incline the intention back to the body, to the breath, to this moment, this being here. So be curious about what you're experiencing. See if you can bring a quality of interest, curiosity to what's present. What am I aware of? What am I noticing? How does it feel? Bodily feeling, how does it feel in the body? What sensations am I noticing? What feelings? Do they get stronger? Do they get weaker? Do they fade? Become more intense? Do they have a shape, a color, texture? This quality of interest, of curiosity, can really transform our experience. So paying attention to your experience, being interested. The writer Henry Miller said, the moment one gives close attention to anything, even a blade of grass, it becomes a mysterious, awesome, indescribably magnificent world in itself. The moment one gives close attention to anything, even a blade of grass, it becomes a mysterious, awesome, indescribably magnificent world in itself. It can be helpful in meditation to check in on our attitudes. You could ask the question, how am I meeting this moment? Am I meeting this moment? What is my attitude towards my experience, towards this moment? And notice, excuse me, if it's your attitude is one of resistance. Maybe you notice the body is tightening up, or the mind saying, I don't like this, or I don't want this. Notice if you're clinging to something, wanting something to stay or to last. And just pay attention, notice that. If that's the case, notice if you're judging your experience. Oh, I should be doing this. I should be more attentive. See if you can let go of any attitudes of judging or clinging or aversion, and just invite an attitude of kindness, of acceptance, of interest, of curiosity towards what we're experiencing. I'll finish with a poem I've shared other times. It's by Danusha Lamaris, called Small Kindnesses. And it was written before the pandemic, but includes some interesting references. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by, or how strangers still say, bless you, when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we're saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire. Only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwelling of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, "Here, have my seat. Go ahead, you first. I like your hat." I think what I'd like to do now is just share a very brief reflection on attitudes as really a central part of our practice. I think of one of the major kind of transforming insights of spiritual life is the recognition that we have a choice about how we meet our experience. That life isn't just, a series of things happening to us, that we're kind of victims of in some way or objects of in some way. That the way we meet our experience, the way we choose to respond is a critical component of how we live our life. It actually helps transform or can help transform our lives. At the deepest level, I think we can, these teachings and practices keep reinforcing that we can change our lives. We can actually create our lives. Doesn't mean that things don't happen to us or that we're not affected by what happens in the world or what happens in our family or in our lives. Clearly, those remain important, but we're not purely objects of, our circumstances. We can choose our way, as in the very well-known statement of Viktor Frankl, they could take everything from us, speaking about the Nazi camps of Auschwitz, that they could take everything from us but the last of the human freedoms, the freedom to determine our attitude in any circumstance, that we always, even in the most terrible circumstance, we can choose our way, as he said, as Viktor Frankl says, we can choose how we respond. And so in spiritual practice, certainly in meditation practice, our attitudes are a hugely important part of our practice. How we choose to show up, am I showing up with a story in my mind of like, I want to be somewhere else, I don't like this, or why is this person droning on in this way? Certainly, hopefully not right now, but we could be showing up with a particular attitude that really prevents us being present for the experience. Whereas if we show up with another attitude of saying, okay, maybe I'm not completely into what's going on right now, but I'll show up as best I can. I'll be here. I'll be accepting that this is where I am for this period, and how transformative that shift in attitude can be. It makes the difference between, it can be the difference between heaven and hell, because we can turn any experience into a hell through the attitude we bring to it. Like, I don't want to be there. This is terrible. Why me? Why now? All the things that the mind can say. And conversely, or, in the other side of the coin, even the most difficult experience, if met wholeheartedly, open-heartedly, can be can be transformed by the way we meet our experience, the attitude we bring. And in the meditation today, I focus really on 3 attitudes that I find really central to this practice. And those are the attitudes of kindness, acceptance, and curiosity. And each one is really powerful in its own way. You know, some speak more to the head and some to the heart. You know, curiosity is kind of more the head, more the intellect, more the, you know, the thinking process, if you like, you know, brings in the heart. Kindness very consciously brings in the heart. You know, the heart is in the forefront of kindness, you know, not so much thinking and analyzing, although that's in there as well, that's part of it, but it's much more, the heart is in the forefront there. And acceptance, which is really both heart and mind, you know, and both are included in each of the 3, but with a different emphasis. And just a few words about each of them. You know, particularly, you know, I think it's impossible really to overstate the importance, really the centrality, if you like, of kindness in our practice. You know, the Dalai Lama said, he said, what did the Dalai Lama say? He said, my religion is kindness. He said something, I can't remember the first sentence he said before that. I've got it here though, somewhere here. Oh yeah, my religion is very simple. Yeah, so he begins by talking about my religion. My religion is very simple. My religion is kindness. I think it's a lovely, lovely statement. You know, and the Dalai Lama always comes back to kindness, to compassion. My religion is kindness. What a beautiful, for me, what a beautiful encapsulation of what real religion, I think, should be about. You know, if it's about anything, it's about kindness. So kindness allows us to soften, it allows us to meet difficult experiences open-heartedly, wholeheartedly. It allows us to soften and relax the resistance, the aversion, the judgment. I mean, you know it just by if we're experiencing some difficulty. And you can just take a couple of deeper breaths and put your hand on your heart and maybe wish yourself well. You know, I care about this suffering, or may I be happy, or may I be kind to myself. May I accept this moment as it is. And just in doing that, it can, you know, a shift can take place. We can shift out of a certain mode of seeing and being into a more spacious mode. You know, kindness when, you know, the kindness I'm talking about is very much akin to loving kindness. You know, loving kindness tends to be, we do it as a kind of a practice typically, but it's very much that quality of friendliness, of care towards ourselves, towards others, inviting that quality of kindness to arise. And the quality of acceptance of, you know, we could call it, you know, radical acceptance, as Tara Brach speaks about, deep-rooted acceptance. What we're cultivating is a quality of saying yes to whatever is here. You know, we're not saying yes to this pain as long as it's left, as long as it goes within 5 minutes. You know, that's a kind of bargaining acceptance of, like, we sometimes get into that kind of acceptance. Oh yeah, I can stay with this, but I want it to be gone because I don't really like it. What we're inviting is this quality of saying, okay, can I really fully, wholeheartedly be with this? You know, even if it lasts however long it wants to last. You know, the attitude of acceptance is very much taking refuge in the Dharma. It's kind of saying this moment is like this. Can I open to this moment? Can I say yes to this moment? And accepting this moment as it is the beginning of, You know, it's at the core, I think, of any spiritual practice. We can't really make helpful, positive change in our lives unless we accept where we are and who we are. You know, we have to start from here. And this is, I think, a real beauty of this practice, is it invites us to keep coming back to this moment without judgment. Peace is this moment without judgment. Can I say yes to this, whatever this is, and keep inviting us back to that with acceptance. You know, it's a kind of a radical honesty, not always easy, because the mind often wants to say no, you know, be flippant and say something like about, I can do anything for love, but I won't do that. Do you know, the kind of, there's always something like, no, I'll do this. Yeah, I can do this. I can be with this. I can be with, but not that, not that. You have to kind of be careful of that, not that, because it really is a practice of saying yes. We have to train the mind. It's not easy, you know, to, you know, be compassionate to the politician in the world that we dislike the most. You know, it's not so easy to do that. So we train ourselves to do it, like going to the gym. You know, we train ourselves to open our hearts in this way. So it's a cultivation, it's a training in acceptance, in kindness. And the third quality that I spoke about in the meditation was curiosity. This is an incredibly powerful practice. It can transform any experience. You know, imagine that you're sitting somewhere and you're feeling bored. You know, and the mind is saying, oh God, you know, oh, he's droning on. When's he going to finish? I'm like, you know, hypothetically, of course. And, you know, and, you know, the body's kind of going, drooping because we're really bored. And you bring curiosity to the boredom. You know, you say, okay, I'm feeling bored, you know, the story of boredom. What if I become really interested in this feeling of being bored? Like, oh yeah, how does it feel in my body? Okay, I'm kind of collapsing. Maybe I notice that, become a little more energized. Notice that. I notice the stories in my mind. Oh, so I wish I was somewhere else doing something else. Okay, just notice the stories rather than believing them and buying into them. Now, when we become curious about our experience, the experience is no longer the same. When we're curious about boredom, we're no longer bored. So curiosity transforms everything. If we're caught up in anger, you know, maybe we're experiencing some road rage, you know, but then we pause long enough to be curious and say, oh, noticing how tense and tight I am. My body's contorted. My thoughts are really, you know, 100 a minute, whatever. And then when noticing that, what naturally happens is we step out of the rage or the anger or the anxiety or the boredom or whatever it is. And we're now curious. When we invite in that quality of curiosity, we're changing the experience, you know, because the experience is never separate from the attitude that we bring to it. You know, this is the Buddha's teachings of codependent origination. Everything arises dependent on something else. Our experience isn't some clean, pristine, independent thing that's independent of our attitude to it. The attitude changes the experience. And so curiosity is a particularly valuable, you know, skill tool to transform our experience in helpful and beneficial ways. So just highlighting those attitudes, there's others we could point to, but these three for me of kindness, acceptance, and curiosity. I invite you, you know, over the day, maybe over the week, to just check in with your attitude or your attitudes to your experience. You know, you could put it into the question, how am I meeting this moment? How am I meeting this experience? You know, what is my attitude? And we can transform our attitudes. That's the key. our attitude isn't a given, but we may habitually gravitate towards certain attitudes. Could be negative attitudes, could be judgmental attitudes, but we can train our mind in another direction towards wholesome attitudes, skillful attitudes that lead or promise to lead to well-being and happiness. So our attitudes, you could think of as the spectacles, the glasses through which we look at the world. I read this quote: "Our attitudes are our mental stances, the positions we hold vis-a-vis life. They're the positions we hold vis-a-vis life. In some ways, our attitudes determine everything because they're the glasses or spectacles through which we see the world. They're the glasses through which we see the world. So what are we looking at the world through right now and in any moment? And can we choose a more helpful pair of glasses, pair of spectacles, rather than spectacles that fog up our view? Can we, I'm not suggesting we put on rose-tinted spectacles, but spectacles that really help us to see clearly and help us to meet our experience with kindness, with acceptance. So I'll leave it there for now. Invite that reflection, those reflections. Invite Emily to lead us in some movement. If you would, Emily, can come into our bodies for a few minutes. Leonard. So welcome back, everyone. Let's just take a couple of minutes if anyone has anything. Oh, before we do that, going back to what I started with this morning, if anyone is interested, I know a number of you have said you're interested in what I was talking about, like a course, like the Four Noble Truths for, and their relevance for our times. If you're interested, please feel free to just put your name and your email in the chat box, and I'll have a list to get a list together and keep you posted when it's going to be starting. So feel free to do that. And if anyone has anything, we won't take a lot of time because we're getting close to time. But if anyone has something you'd like to share that feels, feels urgent or feels like you'd like to share it with the group, we'll take maybe a couple of folks. Anyone who, and you can raise your hand, or you can raise your hand in the chat box. Or if not, we can continue. Let's see. Bill, are you waving, Bill? We are on mute. What's some of the most famous words?
Maybe I can make some noise now.
What's that?
Maybe I can make some noise now.
Yes.
Yes. Your three things that you started with, curiosity really got me. Lately, I think I've been losing mine to some degree, which makes me a little more self-centered than I wish to be. And that really gave me a call to wake up and smell the roses and get on with it. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to see you. I'm really glad that we can be together in this way. Give my best and our best to Sue. And,
will do.
Yeah.
There's somebody else waving in the corner over here, Jackie in DC.
Jackie?
Find her flowers.
Hey, I was saying in our small group that today was such a great lesson that you gave. And, I can do the meditation, I can do the reading, but having a teacher is just so lovely to be reminding us of what the teachings are all about. And today was super important for me. I really appreciate today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jackie. I really appreciate your kindness. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And Yeah, I mean, it's really, really good to be together, and just the gift of community, of Sangha, of feeling us all here together. I have the, my Sundays have shifted a bit in the last few months. As some of you know, I do this online, well, they're all online now anyway, but I do a live session on Insight Timer with at 9 a.m. and it's a shorter thing, and I just take a theme of the practice. And it's really interesting because I think today we had like 630 people or something on from 20 or 30 different countries around the world. And it's just in that web, just in that community, there are 18 million people signed up for Insight Timer, and lots and lots of live sessions, as well as all the meditations and courses and talks on there. And it really warms my heart to meditate, obviously with all of us here, and we tend to know each other a little bit more. Some of us been together for a number of years, but to see all these, hundreds and hundreds of people from all around the world, and to meditate together, and to kind of feel the field of compassion and loving kindness, and to be able to kind of, what I always finish up with is inviting us all to go back into our families and into our communities and into our world with compassion, with a wish to, to heal the suffering of the world, tikkun olam in the Jewish tradition, healing the world. And it makes me feel very hopeful, in amidst all the divisions and all of the suffering, that we can, we collectively as humans, that we can change, and that we can, perhaps change in time the crisis around the climate, and around even deeper, and what's underneath the climate crisis and every other crisis, which is, a crisis of the heart, of being separate from each other, and not really finding the way to open our hearts to each other, and in all the habitual ways we shut down. And so feeling hopeful, and I guess what I'd like to do is finish with a short meditation, and then I'll share a little bit more about upcoming sessions. And
Hugh,
yeah, please.
Hugh, I'm sorry to interrupt. Kerry has his hand raised.
Yeah, please. We'll take Kerry, and then we'll have a short meditation to finish. Thank you. Go ahead, Kerry.
Thank you for taking me. Really appreciate the teaching today on curiosity, especially. I spent so many years negating my emotions, avoiding them, pushing them away, even after coming from a family that where there was little emotional contact or emotional expression. So I think it's vital that we practice this curious awareness of even the most negative emotions, and sit with them, and obviously investigate and nurture ourselves. Always finish with the nurturing, and they have a way of dissipating after working through that process, maybe a few times. They will feel less strong. And yeah, great job today, Hugh. I really appreciate you bringing a bit of warmth to Saskatchewan here this morning. Minus 40.
Very good.
Minus 40 actually in Fahrenheit and Celsius is the same temperature.
That's incredible. That's amazing. I can only imagine it. Here it's I don't know what the temperature is. It's probably about freezing, but it's very beautiful. It's been lovely to watch
snow
come down. And
on a lighter note, there's not many places that you can get teaching that includes quotes from Buddha, Henry Miller, and Meatloaf in the same session. So I think you stand uniquely.
That's great.
You're unique in the internet.
very good, very good. That can be an advertising about the Buddha and Meatloaf, and Henry Miller. Lovely. Well, let's do a short meditation to finish. Yeah, just inviting again a settling, maybe a deeper breath or two, to relax again into being here. Just remembering the resources that are available to us to help us relax, to help us settle and arrive. You know, the deeper breath helps us shift into the parasympathetic nervous system, helps us to settle and relax. The smile, inviting a smile, sends a message to our brain and to our nervous system that we can relax, we can be at ease. Gratitude helps to shift us out of our focus on what's wrong or what we're lacking, just to help us arrive. And these practices of paying attention without judgment, with kindness, with acceptance, with curiosity to our experience. We might finish off with just by wishing ourselves well, bringing kindness and compassion towards yourself. So you might breathe in a wish of kindness to yourself. Maybe you could put your hand on your heart, on your belly. Could be a word or a phrase, may I be safe, may I be happy, may I be kind to myself. Or just the feeling, just the felt sense of wishing yourself well. Feeling ourselves here held in community. You know, all of us here together, all of our shared intentions to wake up, to live more wisely, more kindly, more skillfully. Just sensing this field of loving kindness, of care, all of us here together. As you breathe in kindness for yourself, you might breathe out kindness, compassion to everyone here in this class, wishing everyone well. May you be happy. May you be safe. May you be held in loving kindness, filled with loving kindness. May you live with ease and with kindness. You might let the field go out further, expand to include beings near and far, all beings. Human and non-human. With an aspiration that our practice be of benefit to all. Wishing everyone well. Letting your loving kindness and compassion go out into the world, wherever your heart, your imagination takes you right now. There's so much pain and hurt and suffering in the world. Just sending loving kindness out. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be held in loving kindness, filled with loving kindness. All beings everywhere. And just finishing with words from Dr. Martin Luther King here in the beginning of Black History Month. I've seen too much hate to want to hate myself. And every time I see it, I say to myself, hate is too great a burden to bear. Somehow we must be able to stand up against our most bitter opponents and say, we shall match your capacity to inflict suffering by our capacity to endure suffering. We will meet your physical force with soul force. Do to us what you will, and we will still love you. But be assured that we'll wear you down by our capacity to suffer, and one day we will win our freedom. We will not only win freedom for ourselves, we will appeal to your heart and conscience that we will win you in the process, and our victory will be a double victory. May our practice help heal the divisions in the country, in the world. May all beings awaken to their true nature and be free from suffering. So I'll share a couple of things, and Michelle, and invite you to share from the center and upcoming activities. Just a couple of things. If anyone would like to have a longer period of practice together, I'm doing a day-long retreat on February 27th. That's 3 weekends from now on the Saturday, the 27th, and you can do the whole day, or if you want to do the morning or the afternoon, that's on the IMCW website under events coming up on February 27th. And again, a number of people have shared your emails if you're interested in being kept informed about these deepening practice, these core teachings coming up. Just put your email down in the chat box. And the last thing for me is just to say, if you're new to the community, there's no cost for the class. Everyone is welcome to attend, whether in person, when we're in person, or online. However, you are invited, if you're able and inclined, to give dana, which is the Pali word for generosity, which is how the teachings have come down through 100 generations. And we'll be sharing in the chat box how you can do that. I think Dan or Michelle shared that. And you can also sign up there for the, well, I think maybe we'll be sharing with that in a minute, but different ways that you can provide dana. So thank you for your support.